Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Minnesota Mike back with you for another video. Happy Thanksgiving. It's a little bit later than I normally would play this, but one thing led to another with Officer Obi, and here we are. This is my annual playing of Alice's Restaurant. I guess biannual because I play it for my students too. But just one of my absolute favorites. Like I said, Alice's Restaurant, and I hope you enjoy it. This song is called Alice's Restaurant. It's about Alice and the restaurant. But Alice's Restaurant is not the name of the restaurant, that's just the name of the song, and that's why I called this song Alice's Restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Walk right in, it's around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad track. Said you can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Now, it all started 2 Thanksgivings ago. Was on 2 years ago on Thanksgiving when my friend and I went up to visit Alice at the restaurant. But Alice doesn't live at the restaurant. She lives at the church nearby the restaurant in the bell tower with her husband Ray and Fasha the dog. And living in the bell tower like that, they got a lot of room downstairs where the pews used to be, and having all that room, seeing as how they took out all the pews, they decided that they didn't have to take out their garbage for a long time. We got there and we found all the garbage in there, and we decided it'd be a friendly gesture for us to take the garbage down to the city dump. So we took the half-ton of garbage and put it in the back of the red VW microbus, took the shovels and the rakes and the implements of destruction, and headed toward the city dump. Well, we got there, and when we did, there was a big sign with a chain across the dump saying closed on Thanksgiving, and we had never heard of a dump being closed on Thanksgiving before, and so with tears in our eyes, we drove off into the sunset looking for another place to put the garbage. We didn't find one. Till we came to the side of the road, and off the side of the road there was another 15-foot cliff, and at the bottom of the cliff was another pile of garbage. And we decided that one big pile is better than 2 little piles, and rather than bring that one up, we decided to throw ours down. And that's exactly what we did. We drove back to the church and had a Thanksgiving dinner that couldn't be beat, went to sleep and didn't get up until the next morning when we got a phone call from Officer Obi. He said, "Kid, we found your name on an envelope at the bottom of a half-ton of garbage and just wanted to know if you had any information about it." And I said, "Yes, sir, Officer Obi, I cannot tell a lie. I put the envelope under that garbage." And after speaking to Obi for about 45 minutes on the telephone, we finally arrived at the truth of the matter and said that we had to go down and pick up the garbage and also had to go down and speak to him at the police officer's station. So we got in the red VW microbus with the shovels and the rakes and the implements of destruction and headed toward the police officer's station. Now, friends, there was only 1 or 2 things that Obi could have done at the police station, and first he could have given us a medal for being so brave and honest on the telephone, which wasn't very likely and we didn't expect it, and the other thing was he could have bawled us out and told us to never be seen driving garbage around the vicinity again, which is what we expected. But when we got down to the police officer's station, there was a third possibility that we hadn't even counted upon, and we was both immediately arrested, handcuffed. And I said, "Obi, I don't think I can pick up garbage with these handcuffs on." And he said, "Shut up, kid, and get in the back of the patrol car." And that's exactly what we did. We sat in the back of the patrol car and drove to the, quote, scene of the crime, unquote. I want to tell you about the town of Stockbridge, Massachusetts, where this is happening here. They got 3 stop signs, 2 police officers, and 1 police car, but when we got to the quote scene of the crime, unquote, there was 5 police officers and 3 police cars, being the biggest crime of the last 50 years, and everybody wanted to get the newspaper story about it. And they was using up all kinds of cop equipment, and they had hanging around the police officer's station. They was taking plastic tire track footprints and dog-smelling prints, and they took 27 8x10 colored glossy photographs with circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one, explaining what each one was to be used as evidence against us. They took pictures of the approach, the getaway, the northwest corner, the southwest corner, and that's not to mention the aerial photography. After the ordeal, we went back to the jail, and Obi said he was gonna put us in the cell. He said, "Kid, I'm gonna put you in the cell. I want your wallet and your belt." And I said, "Obi, I can understand you want my wallet, so I don't have any money to spend in the cell, but what do you want my belt for?" And he said, "Kid, we don't want any hangings." And I said, "Obi, did you think I was gonna hang myself for littering?" Obi said he was just making sure, and friends that Obi was, 'cause he took out the toilet seat so I couldn't hit myself over the head with it and drown, and he took out the toilet paper so I couldn't bend the bars and roll out the toilet paper out the window and slide down the roll and have an escape. Obi was just making sure, and it was about 4 or 5 hours later that Alice, remember Alice? There's a song about Alice. Alice came by with a few nasty words to Obi on the side and bailed us out of jail, and we went back to the church and had another Thanksgiving dinner that couldn't be beat, and didn't get up until the next morning when we all had to go to court. We walked in and sat down, and Obi came in with the 27 8x10 colored glossy pictures with circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one, and sat down, and the man came in and said, "All rise," and we stood up, and Obi stood up with the 27 8x10 colored glossy pictures, and the judge walked in, sat down with a CNI dog, and he sat down, and we sat down, and Obi looked at the CNI dog and then at the 27 8x10 colored glossy pictures with the circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one explaining what we did to be used as evidence against us. And he began to cry because Obi came to the realization that it was a typical case of American blind justice, and there wasn't nothing he could do about it, and the judge wasn't going to look the other way at the 27 8x10 colored glossy pictures with the circles and the arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one explaining what each one was to be used as evidence against us. And we was fined $50 and had to pick up garbage in the snow. But that's not what I came here to tell you about. I came here to talk about the draft. They got a building down in New York City called Whitehall Street where you walk in and you get injected, inspected, detected, infected, neglected, and selected. I went down to get my physical examination one day. I walked in, I sat down, I got good and drunk the night before, so I looked and felt my best when I went in that morning because I wanted to look like the all-American kid from New York City. I mean, I wanted to look and feel like the all-American kid from New York. And I walked in, sat down, I was hung down, brung down, hung up, and all kinds of mean and nasty, ugly things. And I walked in, I sat down, and they gave me a piece of paper, and they said, "Kid, go see the psychiatrist in room 604. And I said, "Shrink." I went up there and I said, "Shrink, I want to kill. I want to kill. I want to see blood and gore and guts and vein in my teeth and eat dead, burned bodies. Kill, kill." And I started jumping up and down, yelling, "Kill, kill." And he started jumping up and down with me, and we was both yelling, "Kill, kill." And the sergeant came over and pinned a medal on me and said, "Kid, go down the hall and sit on the Group W bench." He said, "You're our boy." I wasn't proud of it. Proceeded down the hall, getting more injections, inspections, and detections, and neglections, and all kinds of stuff that they was doing to me, and I was doing there, and I was there for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. I was in there for a long time doing all kinds of mean and nasty, ugly things, and I was just having a rough time in there, and they was inspecting, injecting every single part of me, and they was leaving no part untouched. Proceeded through, and I finally came to see the very last man. Walked in, sat down after the whole thing, and I walked in and I said, "What do you want?" And he said, "Kid, we only got one question. Have you ever been arrested?" And I proceeded to tell him the story of the Alice's Restaurant massacre with full orchestration and 5-part harmony and stuff like that and all the phenomena. And he stopped me right there and he said, "Kid, did you ever go to court?" And I proceeded to tell him the story, the 27 8x10 color glossy pictures with the circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one. And he stopped me right there and he said, "Kid, I want you to go over and sit down on that bench that says Group W. I know I mentioned the Group W bench earlier, but my memory's a little bit fuzzy because this was quite the traumatic experience. So it was then that he told me to go sit on the Group W bench. And when I kind of paused for a second, he said, "Now, kid." And I walked over to the bench over there, and there it is, the Group W's, where they put you if you may not be moral enough to join the army after committing your special crime. And there was all kinds of mean and nasty, ugly-looking people on the bench there, and mother rapers and father stabbers and father rapers. Now, the father rapers were sitting right there on the bench next to me, and they was mean and nasty and horrible crime-type guys sitting on the bench, and the meanest, nastiest, ugliest one, the meanest father raper of them all, was coming over to me, and he was mean and nasty and horrible and all kinds of things, and sat down next to me, and he said, "Kid, what'd you get?" And I said, "I didn't get nothing. I had to pay $50 and pick up the garbage." And he said, "What were you arrested for, kid?" And I said, "Littering." And they all moved away from me on the bench there and gave me the hairy eyeball and all kinds of mean and nasty, ugly things, till I said, "And creating a nuisance." And they all came back and shook my hand, and we had a great time on the bench talking about crime and mother stabbing and father raping and all kinds of groovy things that we were talking about on the bench. And everything was fine. We was smoking cigarettes and all kinds of things until the sergeant came over. He had some paper in his hand and he held it up and he said, "Kids, this piece of paper got 47 words, 37 sentences, 58 words, and we want to know the details of the crime, the time of the crime, and any other thing you got to say pertaining to and about the crime. I want to know the arresting officer's name and any other kind of thing you got to say." And he talked for 45 minutes, and nobody understood a word he said, but we had fun filling out the forms and playing with the pencils on the bench there, and I filled out the massacre with 4-part harmony, and I wrote it down there just like it was, and everything was fine. And as I put down the pencil and I turned over the piece of paper, and there on the other side, in the middle of the other side, away from everything else on the other side, in parentheses and capital letters quotated, read the following words: "Kid, have you rehabilitated yourself?" And I went over to the sergeant and I said, "Sergeant, you got a lot of damn gall to ask me if I've rehabilitated myself. It's just that I'm sitting here on the bench. I'm sitting here on the Group W bench because you want to know if I'm moral enough to join the army, burn women, kids, houses, villages after being a litter bug." And he looked at me and he said, "Kid, we don't like your kind, and we're going to send your fingerprints off to Washington. And friends, somewhere in Washington, enshrined in a little folder, is a study in black and white of my fingerprints. And the only reason I'm singing you this song right now is because you may know somebody in a similar situation, or you may be in a similar situation. And if you're in a situation like that, there's only one thing you can do, and that's walk into the shrink wherever you are and just say, 'Shrink, you can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant.'" You know, if one person does that, they might think he's really sick and they won't take him. And if two people do it in harmony, they might think they're both crazy and they might not take either of them. And if three people, imagine 3 people walking into the shrink's office wherever they are and singing a bar of Alice's Restaurant, that'd be quite something. And imagine 20 people. 20 people. Heck, that's a coalition right there. 20 people. Now imagine 50. Imagine 50 people. That's not a coalition. That's a movement. And that's really what this is. This is the Alice's Restaurant anti-massacre movement. And in order to start traction on that movement, we all gotta sing in 20-part harmony. So I want everybody, and I mean everybody, when the guitar comes back in, to help me sing along with the chorus. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. That was horrible. We're trying to start a movement here. And if we're going to be taken seriously, I need everyone, and I mean everyone, to sing along and start this movement. So you guys have one more chance. You have one more chance. So when the guitar comes back around, I need everybody singing. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Walk right in, it's around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad track. I said you can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Do, 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 at Alice's Restaurant. All right, and that was Alice's Restaurant, as tradition dictates. You guys might not be able to see it, but this is actually my very first guitar that I'm playing. So that felt very good. Hadn't played that in a while. Had to tune it up and all of that good stuff. But best Thanksgiving song ever. I absolutely love playing it, and I love that I get people tuning in every single year. It's one of my absolute favorite Thanksgiving traditions. I'm Minnesota Mike. Thank you so much for watching. Happy Thanksgiving.